Insider Elliotte Friedman once again has come out with some information regarding one of the Florida Panthers players who has been the talk of trade scenarios the whole summer. I'll tell you what he had to say. And it's the top 10 worst contracts in the NHL rated by The Athletic. Well, one of the writers. One of the Panthers players' contracts did fall into that top 10. I'll tell you who the player is and what do I think about what The Athletic has to say about his contract being one of the top 10 worst. Guys, thank you for joining me on this episode of Panthers Digest. I am Greg Andrews. Hit that subscribe button down below. You guys need to stay up to date with anything and everything that has to do with your back-to-back Stanley Cup champion, Florida Panthers. So, Elliotte Friedman, well, a couple days ago, he said that, well, you know, it's just a matter of time before we find out whether or not Matthew Tkachuk is going to have, when is he going to have surgery? Not if, but when is he going to have surgery? So, with that being said, he just came out with this. Fans have wondered if Florida would have to trade someone like Evan Rodrigues. I don't think that's going to be happening. He said that on the 32 Thoughts podcast. I've said this before. I don't think he's going to be going anywhere. Matthew Tkachuk's going to be placed on LTIR for a considerable amount of time. I think that they're going to find some way to be able to keep him on this roster. I don't think he's going to leave. I've already said this before. If he does get traded, I believe it's going to happen right up until we get to the trade deadline. That day, probably right before, within that 24-hour period, if it does happen at all. Maybe not. Remember, this is the last year any team in the NHL can put a player on LTIR, and then you could carry things over into the postseason and not have to have a roster meet the cap salary, okay? So it could work in the Panthers' favor, although he did say, Elliotte Friedman did say that he doesn't believe that Matthew Tkachuk is going to miss the Olympics. He'll probably be around for the latter part of the regular season and then into the playoffs, so on and so forth. But we'll see what happens. Again, if it comes down to it, other players might have to be waived or traded or something like that. I mean, I don't want to speculate and get into this whole thing right now, but right now he's saying he does not believe he's going to be going anywhere. I agree with him. But we still have to wait and see what happens with Matthew Tkachuk. Again, it's not a matter of if he has surgery, it's just a matter of when. We're not going to get into LTIR or anything like that. I already did that in the last episode. So we're going to keep moving forward, guys. So the top 10 worst contracts, 2025 edition, written by Don Lucian. Okay, his name is not easy to say. It is spelled so crazy. I think I got it right. Dom Lucian, I think. So he wrote the article, and Bennett's contract came up number 8, the 8th worst, contract in the NHL. Now, the reason behind that, I mean, this is the stat sheet that they're using that talks about his declining value over the next several seasons, moving into that 2023 season where that will be his 8th year. So they say $8 million per season. Yes, $5.5 million is the market value for him, and it's because of his age. He even says it in his article. It is because of his age, but they didn't retain him because he's a great regular season player. They retained him and they signed him for this contract because he's a great playoff player. He shines in the biggest moments. He's really stepped up in the last couple of years in the playoffs, especially this last one. That's why he won the Conn Smythe Trophy. Obviously, we all know that. So the biggest thing is this, though. He said, okay, you know, for the first 3 to 4 years, this contract is actually very solid. You're going to get a great player. He's still got several good years left. But after that, what is going to happen? A lot of people are saying he's really going to decline because he's got a lot of tread on those tires. He plays a very physical style of hockey, and who knows when it's going to take a toll. He has had injuries in the past. So it's when does everything start to catch up with Sam Bennett? It's just a matter of time. I've said this before. Father Time knows no man. Sam Bennett is no exception. Especially in the game of hockey, these guys get so beat up. And the more physical style of hockey you play, I would even say the shorter career you could have in the NHL. I know there's some guys out there that played 20 years that were pretty physical, but still, not every player is the same. So I don't want to make any comparisons, okay? I really don't. But anyways, they said that, you know, he's a $10.5 million player in the playoffs, but in the regular season, he's $5.5 million. So in the article, Dom says, well, you kind of meet at that halfway point. You call it splitting the difference at $8 million. Okay, I get that. He goes on to say that, well, you know what? Even though his declining value later down the line, it's the one franchise that this really works for is the Florida Panthers because he fits the scheme. The chemistry is there. If he was on any other team, this would be a complete overvalue because who knows how he would fit in with another team, with the players, with the system that they have. That's why he's like, it's in here, but it's just not going to age that well. But should it technically be here? I would say a lot of people would say no, it really shouldn't. It's actually a pretty decent deal considering how he played in the playoffs. Again, they're getting him not for the regular season, they're getting Sam Bennett for the playoffs. Deserving of that contract? Absolutely. Absolutely. Do I think it's one of the worst? No. Even Dom says technically it's not. He says, let me see this here. He's a key championship piece for a franchise with dynastic hopes, i.e., the Florida Panthers. That's all that matters. Signed by another team, Bennett's deal would have been incredibly risky. For the Panthers, and only the Panthers, it's a risk they can easily afford. And one of the reasons why it's a risk they can easily afford is because they're getting a little bit of help from the other contracts from some of these other players. I'm not going to show you that now, but these are his regular season stat lines. I'm sorry for the writing there. I cut off the game, the goals, assists, points, plus minus, penalty minutes, all that. So you can see in his last 4 seasons as a Florida Panther in the regular season, he has not had a complete full season. Yes, I know this past season, 76 games is close enough, as well as 71, but still not a full season in any of the years. He had a pretty bad plus minus this past season, but really showed up in the playoffs. And again, that's what matters. Penalty minutes are an issue still, but that's because he plays a very physical style of hockey, guys. But okay numbers. Okay numbers for the regular season, but he doesn't need to put up, again, like 32, 35 goals in a season and have 40 assists or 35 assists in the regular season. They count on these numbers, guys, right here. And he has been getting better every season. I want you to look more at the goals rather than the assists. He has shifted his game more towards being the player to be in front of the net, to block out the goaltenders. And I know what some of you are going to say, dirty this, dirty that. Smart player, understands the rules, knows where to be. That's why when they replay some of these things that have happened that have been controversial, there have been no calls. There have been the NHL has not come down on him at all and reprimanded him or the Florida Panthers for his play. I mean, 1 or 2 times they came down. The NHL didn't come down, but the referees did give him a penalty. But still, high reward for the risk that he is putting in. It just shows right here. 15 goals this postseason. A great 23 game postseason this past season. That's why he won the Conn Smythe. That's why he was rewarded with the contract that he got of $64 million for 8 years. So again, it's not the deal might not age, as well as people would hope it would, but it doesn't matter. I've said this before. I think the timeline for this team is not from now until the next 8 years until 2033. This is more about between the next 3 to 5 years, this team wants to be a dynasty. That's why these guys are signing these contracts. That's why Bill Zito is coming in and saying, we're not going to give you a 5 or 6 year deal because we know you're going to want to get more money per year. You're going to want to be guaranteed this contract for a long term, then you will stay. And that's exactly what they've been doing for some of these guys. Lock them in long term. So with Bennett staying here, I don't know if he'll stay here until 2033. Yes, he signed that way, but when you're looking at these players signed for such long-term contracts, trades could be imminent once they start declining a bit, but still hold some sort of value. Once they reach 2030 in 5 years, let's see where they are with 2 or 3 years left on their contract. This is where Bill Zito, I'm sure, has worked out in his head. All right, we have this team all locked in for the next 5 years, pretty much. Let's call it that. Yes, I know 10 guys, 5 or more years, but 5 years. That is our goal. In this 5-year window, let's win as many Stanley Cups as we can. After that, let's see what we're going to do. Let's make the adjustments. Let's do the trades. Let's get unrestricted free agents. Let's work the draft, do all that stuff. But for now, winning now, that's what they're trying to do. So is the contract one of the worst? I don't think so. I think it's a pretty damn good one because the Panthers are not getting him for $10.5 million AAV. They're getting him for $8 million. Yes, is he? I would say he's undervalued at $5.5 million. He's a better player than that. You could say, look at Sam Reinhart when he signed his contract after they won their Stanley Cup. He had a very, very good regular season. He still had a very solid postseason as well after their first Stanley Cup. Locked him into worth every penny. Still got him for less than what I think his AAV should have really been. And they just have a bunch of contracts. I mean, for example, so Sam Reinhart, Aleksander Barkov, Matthew Tkachuk, Anton Lundell, Gustav Forsling, Aaron Ekblad. All of these guys have signed these great deals for the Panthers organization so they can have that core group of guys remain together. And now, I know Seth Jones, they didn't sign him. That's a contract that rolled over from Chicago, but that's another guy who's going to be here long term. They have such great things worked out on this team. I'm excited, but it's not one of the worst contracts. I disagree with Dom because, yes, in the future, but you can't rule out, hey, you know what? They could trade him. If he doesn't play that great, after 3 years from now, 4 years from now, you could always trade him. You could still get something in return if he's still playing decent hockey, but maybe things start to, trail off there at the end and he starts falling off the cliff a little bit. But I don't see that happening. When these guys have gotten paid, Sam Reinhart has been playing very consistent. He's been very good. Regular season, postseason. Every single one of these guys that has signed a contract has only been playing better. So, thank you guys for joining me in this episode of Panthers Digest. I will have another one coming out more than likely on Thursday, not tomorrow. So I'm going to take a day off. But Thursday, I'm going to be going over the best contracts. And one of the Florida Panthers does fall into one of the top 10 best contracts in the league. But they're leaving out one big contract on the Florida Panthers that I think is an absolute steal. And that is one of the best contracts in all of the NHL, if not probably the best one. But the Athletic doesn't even have mine. So until next time, guys, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button down below. I will talk to you guys next time. Till then, go Cats.